Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on WSGW. Now, here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. Did you guys like the twist that I put on that time? I'm in the studio today with my guys. Got the producer in the house, John B, and the place to be. What's good, John?
Hello, hello. Yeah, I did like that. United Shades.
Yeah, different emphasis. We're got to do some things to make this thing come alive. And the main man, Mark Bassett, is in the house once again.
Back in town, baby. Back in town.
What's up, Mark? Give us a report from Sarasota.
I was in Sarasota for a week for a wedding. The red tide was hitting, which I had never experienced before. I had heard about it, but wow. I mean,
seaweed. Is it
dead
seaweed?
fish everywhere.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Well,
dead
it's an algae bloom, basically. It's a toxic algae bloom, typically in the Gulf. And so there were dead fish everywhere. But I think the thing that I didn't realize, now there was strong winds blowing inland, is like as soon as you got out of a car near the beach, you started coughing, your eyes started burning, your nose started burning, because it basically gives off these spores that are highly irritating. And so it was just really not as good as I had hoped. I couldn't go to the beach, basically. I was in Florida in a
beach house,
on
right?
a beach. No, we were in a hotel, but
you're on the beach.
We could have gone. I was looking forward to go to the beach, and you really couldn't. And then I was in North Carolina, and then Denver.
Wow. Yeah, I saw that happen on TV. I'm like, going, how do they clean all this? I guess they can clean up hurricanes.
Yeah, they come with big tractors and pick up tons of dead fish. Basically, it's crazy. I couldn't believe how many dead fish there were.
Now, is this something that happens naturally, or is this a response to man's intervention?
No, well, I think it's something that happens naturally, and it's not super uncommon. But I think this is a bit of an unusual occurrence for it to be this time of year, as well as I think it was really worse than usual as well. I think there was a lot of high winds for a while blowing inland, which was blowing these huge blooms.
So I guess if it's toxic to fish, it's toxic to humans as well. So everybody's going to suffer.
Yep.
Well, those of you who are listening, we want to thank you for tuning in. For those who are out there in the WSGW market, 100.5 FM and 790 AM, certainly thank you for your continued listenership. And those of you who are down there in Joliet, Illinois, WJOL 1340 AM, we certainly thank you and want you to get involved with the conversation. Our producer is here. I think we're going to start taking calls in the weeks to come and get you guys involved. Yeah, we're
awesome.
get people involved.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, he told me this a while ago. I thought I would hold on to that secret little piece of information until now. But we're going to get you involved in the conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about Women's History Month. March is Women's History Month. And I said, what better way for us to celebrate Women's History Month than three guys to talk about how we can lean in to support women. I just think that that's a good thing. And so that will be our topic of conversation. But as we always do, we start off with what's hot off the press. For all of those of you who are listening out there in Michigan and Illinois and surrounding areas through social media streams. As a matter of fact, I got a phone call from someone they were in Peoria, Illinois, and they had listened to the show, and they were like,
were they listening on WJOL or did they hear on a live stream?
You know, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
I think you need to do market research.
I need to do absolutely, but they were like that white guy who sits next to you is hilarious. I was like, which one? I'm surrounded by him. I'm a minority all over again on my own show, but they enjoyed this show, so we certainly give you guys a shout out there in Peoria. I don't know if you're catching it off of the Joliet. Well, I don't even know position. I think they're kind of.
I think Peoria is downstate. Isn't it?
I think Peoria is not only downstate, but I think it's more eastern, and Joliet is on the west side of Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, thanks for listening, or however you get this information, like, tag, share. You can also go to YouTube and subscribe. That way, when we come on, it's ding and lets you know that we're here. So today, in terms of what's hot off the press, and this is really hot. This is a hot mess, in my opinion. But I would like to see what you guys are thinking about Ron DeSantis. Recently, as he was in Iowa, he featured trying out his new presidential messaging, and he said, the problem with America's democracy is the wokeocracy. John, what did you think? I know you read a little bit of the header, but what are your thoughts concerning this?
I think that, well, I've said it before. Both sides straw man and misrepresent each other's arguments, and then they burn down the straw man and declare victory. And I think it's ridiculous. I think that
they're frequently picking on like one thing that they see, like they're using anecdotal instances like way on the fringe to basically paint a whole demographic of people. It's crazy.
Well, here's the problem with this message. It may work well with certain conservatives in Florida. And of course, the extreme right is going to jump on this. We have politics of the extremes as of late. But the problem is this: how many times have you heard the word woke in mainstream America? How many times?
More and more frequently.
Okay, but where does this term usually come from? It was a term that was derived actually by members of the hip hop culture.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Oh, the fact that DeSantis is now using the word woke is kind of interesting, because woke was something that we were talking about 10 years ago.
And what was it back then?
And it was really encouraging young Black people to come to an understanding of things in our community that may not have necessarily been true. For instance, and this is just kind of a rare, we were taught in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's how we remembered it. I still remember it. And to understand that wokeness would say that the reality of that situation when we were young, and I remember being at Michigan State, it was in the 90s, and them saying, learning that Christopher Columbus, and this was it was an African American studies class at Michigan State University my sophomore year, that when Cristobal Colon, when he came to the United States, that there were already people here. So he didn't, in fact, you can't discover a place that there were already indigenous people here. So that was the conversation. And so the understanding of being aware to the true story of history. And so the woke thing has been a part of the hip hop culture from academia through forever, for probably about the past 10, 15 years. So now to hear Ron DeSantis say it, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like when I go to a reception, to a white reception, and they're like, "Hey, too legit." Like, that song No Longer Is Hot. That was like a long time ago.
Like MC Hammer. Can't touch this. Or Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
And so it's funny. So I don't know how that messaging is going to play out in a national
It's not his
campaign.
term. He's just latched onto it. I mean, it seems like his whole campaign is based on this. I just think it's a losing proposition.
Florida is where woke comes to die.
I just personally don't think.
John loves that.
I won't vote for him. I have zero interest in politicians that seek to divide the country.
Mark, who are you going to vote for? Mark.
I don't know. I may not vote. I may throw away my vote. I mean,
can I have your vote? Can you write me in?
I can write you in.
Okay,
Kareem.
please.
Maybe I'll write myself in.
I might win.
I can always say I got one vote
by default. Hey, John, I'm pandering for votes here. Can I get your vote?
There you go.
All right. Those of you who are listening, if you like on this next presidential election, if you really don't like the candidates, just write me in. Okay. Yeah. If I won, I would freak out.
I'm hoping there's a centrist Republican, because I do believe in fiscal conservatism, that will find it's forever away at this point, that will find
it is, but it's tomorrow in the same token.
No, but
I mean, by the end of this month, April.
Yeah, it's over a year away, a year and a half away. That's an eternity in politics, as far as I'm concerned.
I guess I think that we kind of have an idea of who tends to be. Well, I guess not, because that's not what happened. Barack Obama gave a speech, and all of a sudden,
Bill Clinton.
You're absolutely right. You're right.
Yeah, so
someone called me from they used to work for Bill Clinton. It was funny. And it happened to it was a Monica Lewinsky. But she called me and she said, she started talking to me about politics. I'm like, who are you? Oh, I used to work for Bill Clinton, and we met you on campus at MSU. I'm like, and you kept my information? So I guess she works. She's one of those people that you call in to organize. And well, this is what you were thinking then. I'm like, oh no, I no, there's no way I think that. You're asking me what I thought when I was 19, if I still think that same way at 40 plus years.
I hope not.
No, things are in trouble. So she was like, okay, well, thank you for your call. Like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be of no service this time, babe. And I didn't mean it to be frustrated, but she was kind of frustrated because of my responses. But that was interesting. I didn't know that they kept your information this long. But the crazy thing is, why did I have the same cell phone number?
Yeah, that's a surprise to me. Yeah.
I've never. Have you changed your cell phone?
Not in a long time. I mean, again, when you're working for a company, you keep the
Yeah.
same number.
Yeah.
I kept it when I went to Hemlock, and then now most companies allow you to keep the number basically.
How many times have you changed your number, John?
One time.
Only one time.
Yeah.
That's good for someone your age, because I know most millennials and was it Z-Gens, they change their number like they change their clothes. It's crazy. You call them like, oh, I got a new number. I'm getting text messages like, who is this? Like, you just got the last one like 3 weeks ago. But I have the same cell phone number. So if you're out there and you knew me back in 1995, you can still call me. But anyways, let's get so Ron DeSantis was one thing, but this is something that was really interesting. I saw a study. I was watching the History Channel, and they brought this thing on, and they were talking about the number of folks living with Alzheimer's will double by 2050. And I think, Mark, your family, you've been impacted by Alzheimer's?
Not directly. My biological father, whom I haven't seen since I was one, he's got Alzheimer's. Supposedly his dad had Alzheimer's. My wife assures me I've done 23andMe that I don't have the gene for Alzheimer's, but I have actually noticed that I'll forget words occasionally now these days. And so I'm struggling for a word in a dialogue. So I don't know.
Mark, you're fine. Mary's like, if you're gonna forget me, I want to make sure I know now.
Let me get all the will right now. Let's clean up the will right now. So
we're gonna get everything signed right now. But this is a real thing. So they said by 2050 the number is going to double. And they're saying that the things that are important, and I think this is an important conversation for us to talk about. Baby boomers are great contributors to this. The fact that they just won't die. They live and live and live. But I also think medicine also probably contributes to the fact that people are living longer. The fact that treatments are way too expensive for the better types of medicines and
for Alzheimer's in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm just wondering, so do you all think that our environment and the world around us contributes to this process? Mark, one of the things that they said before you answer that is that some of the symptoms are losing things often, forgetting appointments and events, struggling for words.
I don't forget things, but struggling for words occasionally I have noticed.
Really? Mm-hmm. But I think that we all have a tendency to do that. I know John is sitting here sometimes when we're doing our promos, I am like struggling for a word to come out.
I think that's fairly common as people age. I've noticed with my father, my stepfather, who is my father, who's in his mid 80s now. He, even a regular sentence, he'll struggle for words on like every third sentence kind of a thing. So.
But the reason I thought this was such an interesting thing, Mark, because I thought about your biological father, and I know that when we were having that conversation, the fact that he was suffering, and I hope you don't mind me saying, he was suffering from dementia was one of the elements that kind of kept you guys apart as of recent. And so I just thought about this, and I said, wow, if double the number of folks are struggling, and I've seen people go through the battle, and those of you who are listening, if you've had loved ones that have struggled or have experienced Alzheimer's, it is such a horrible thing. A good friend, Don Bivens, and you haven't met him yet, but I'm going to introduce you to him. His mom recently died of Alzheimer's, and when we were talking, he says one of the most difficult things was that someone that you went to for all of your love and support, that kissed every hurt and took care of you, you now look in their eyes and you're looking for some semblance of that person, and they have no idea who you are. So my heart goes out to all of those who struggle. I pray that they will eventually find some kind of cure for Alzheimer's. But until then, we'll be dealing with it. 2050, half, it's going to double. That's absolutely just crazy. And of course, now we're going to go and we're going to talk about things that John likes to talk about. He likes to talk about the sea lions and the seals and polar bears.
My favorite
Greenpeace Jonathan's a Greenpeace activist.
He's tied himself to a tree a couple of times.
Save the whales.
But Antarctica, the sea ice has reached a new low. And I'm joking about this, but this is really something that is kind of important to me.
This is why they're talking about certain islands being going under
and everything that's happening there. So Their animal species are starting to migrate because the ice levels are melting, which means that the water's rising and all of it. Why are you laughing, John?
I'm not laughing. I'm listening intently.
This is a
Are you
serious
are you
issue.
not concerned about Chili Willy the penguin? I mean, like, you've got to make sure that we keep these stories are important because they impact the world that's around us. So krill, which I didn't know, krill, the little
that's what the whales eat and
yeah.
stuff.
So whales eat it. Humpback whales are gonna have less pregnancies, which means that we'll have less of that particular species. And what was interesting that I found out about this, and it's kind of maybe we should take a hint for this for other countries, but I found out that Antarctica is set aside for a place for peace and science. It's not owned by any country, but everyone has the right to go there. They explore and they share the findings that they find there. Could you imagine if the rest of the world was based in that kind of understanding?
I guarantee there's some weapons platform somewhere in Antarctica. I guarantee it. Someone's not following
Same as on the moon
rules.
too, right?
Yeah. Someone's not
Between
following
Russia and the
rules.
United States, they will leave no place unturned. There's probably an Antarctic war shelf that opens up the ice.
It's like that James Bond movie.
Yeah.
That's what do you think is melting the ice? It's the warheads underneath.
Nuclear. There's a nuclear power generator down there.
But we got to take care of our planet. It's so very important. I am not by any means a tree hugger, as people will refer to them, but I do think that it's important that we leave this place better than we received it from the previous generation. All right, so this is interesting. We always have a spy game element to our conversations. Russia shot down an unmanned U.S. drone was it the Black Sea? Just recently. So what are you guys thinking about all of this going on? It was a Reaper surveillance drone, $23 million piece of technology.
That's a cheap piece of technology in the greater scheme of the U.S. military. It is,
but it's a drone.
It's unmanned. Obviously, it's
a remote control airplane.
Yeah, it's gathering information, intelligence.
Okay, so it's gathering intelligence. So I want to ask the question: Is there a bit of hypocrisy that we're looking at here? Well, it wasn't a drone, but we had paper bags flying over the country. These balloons flying over the U.S. That have been shot down. One's believed to be surveillance. I think the other one has never been.
I think the U.S.'s position here is though it was over international waters.
Right. So it's international waters.
Right.
But it is spying.
Yep.
And I'm sure they weren't spying or taking pictures of the Black Sea. This particular drone has the capability to carry weapons. It was unmanned as we see it. There were actually 2 fighter jets that were attacking, that were kind of surveillancing this drone as a part of this process. And this is what I don't get. And I was hoping maybe you guys could make sense of it. I was looking and reading and Googling and all that stuff, and I couldn't find anything. The jet initially poured gas over the drone.
Mm-hmm.
And then came back later, and I think it accidentally clipped it with one of the propellers. Was it going to set it on fire and throw a match out the window of the jet and blow it up?
Maybe they thought that would screw up everything and it would crash it. It would be my guess. I'm just guessing.
I'm wondering, does their technology work that way? Maybe there was something in it that they were trying, but it poured fuel all over it, and then it actually crashed. So, Lindsey, this is where it gets good. Lindsey Graham, our wonderful person in the U.S. Senate, says that any time that a U.S. asset is approached, that the United States should shoot down those jets. What do you guys think about that?
I think that's a reckless thing to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't say at any time. That's kind of a pretty broad blanket statement.
It is.
It is.
You really have to. It's a judgment. To me, you got to look at each situation as a judgment and make a decision in that moment.
Now, but this is the thing. See, this is if we would
to me,
roll
that's just
back
a political play. He's playing. He's just saying something that he knows is ridiculous to play the politics of the situation.
But I think that even playing the politics of the situation, we roll back this, a year ago, like we were talking when Ukraine first was invaded by Russia.
Yeah.
How involved are we willing to be in this war? Like, what is the
Well, I
extent?
think that's the fundamental question here in a lot of ways.
I think it's an important question
think-
for Americans to start asking their.
Well, the bill is starting to mount. You know, it was one thing when
mean-
this was going to be, you know, for a few months. Or
we can't afford to pay free tuition for students to go and get free education in this great country. And we can't if we're sending trillions of dollars to fund a war. Okay, I'm using it's not trillions.
Yeah.
But anyways, there's a lot of money.
It is.
There's a lot of money going to NATO. We're paying for we are paying for so much international military aid.
Absolutely.
But even before Ukraine, that I think that Ukraine is kind of shedding a spotlight on it in a very microcosm type of way.
That was one of the things that number 45, me and him had in common. I was like, Donald was like, look, let them pay their fair share, forget this. And I thought the dude was crazy about a lot of other things, but those are the things.
Yeah, like anybody.
I think that they were common sense. Like, why would you fund the world?
No one's all good or all bad. He had said some things that were very true. Just on the whole, it was more negative than positive as far as I was concerned.
Well, I think it's something that you need to start asking the question: how much is enough? And Lil Man Zelensky.
There's a real prejudice there. There's a real prejudice.
President Zelensky,
there.
I apologize. I apologize. President Zelensky.
Wow.
Well, he does what one of our point. He speaks off when he carries a big stick.
Yep.
He's just very, passionate about what he does.
Yeah.
But
he's done a good job of rallying support.
He has, but at some point, bruh, y'all might be speaking another language. You guys may be speaking Russian again.
Yeah. Well, that's back to the domino theory, of why we ended up engaged in Southeast Asia, of like the spread of communism.
There has to be a limit.
Yeah.
There has to be a limit.
So
I want to turn our attention.
Yeah, the more fun stuff here.
The more fun stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh, take a break. Saginaw Short Film Festival. And I see that Renee Hawkins Morris, who is the person who is the head of the Saginaw Juneteenth Celebration Inc. They are pushing forward, and this flyer has been all over social media for Saginaw Short Films, 10 to 15 minutes. A diversity of genres from sci-fi to there's been some really cool. I saw a really cool sci-fi.
Have any been submitted so far?
Yes, and I saw a really cool sci-fi one. But this information is out, and I know there's a lot of people in the community that are talking about it. Some folks have reached, out to me. Photographers. Now, if you think about it, photography and film are not that far apart. And so if you're interested in doing something really cool, you get some really cool music. You show images and features. What I would love to see, and I think what would be really cool, if someone would take this opportunity to showcase what, Saginaw has that's great, what Michigan has that's great. I love those kinds of things as celebratory films. But anyways, if you have something that you would like to be a part of that, it's coming up. Deadline for film submissions is April 30th. Send it to Kareem at KareemBowen.com. We're working on putting a portal there that when you go to that site, you can just upload your film.
How many do you have so far?
I think as we last looked, there were 5 films that had been submitted as we started pushing out.
Need a few more.
Yeah. I'm thinking if we get to 12 films that we can, we're in good shape. And I know that there's probably about 6 or 7 folks that have that are working on stuff. So it's kind of interesting. Something new to happen in our community. Also, Mark, really quick, and we're going to talk about this on the other side if we don't get it all out, because I think it's going to be a good conversation. We're scheduling a breaking bread conversation. I almost feel like, we're talking about the Last Supper with Jesus and his disciples. We're going to have a breaking bread conversation, and we're going to bring in Erin Patrice from Breaking Bread Village. She's out of Midland. Your wife met her.
Yes, she did.
Mary met her at one of the events that was taking place. It's going to take Saturday, March the 25th.
I thought we moved it to April, man.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're right. I'm so sorry. We'll get you the right date. I looked at my calendar. It was still on there for Saturday, March 25th. We'll get you the right date on the other side of this. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that conversation, because I think it's going to be a great opportunity for not us just talk about how do we build coalitions around race and have tough conversations, but you to be able to have that with a complete group of strangers. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back after this with more United Shades of Gray.
You're listening to United Shades of Grey on WSGW.
This is Kareem, and you're back with more United Shades of Grey, conversations of race in America. Before the break, we started talking about our breaking bread conversations, and I have 2 dates that I'm now going to go. But Mark, the actual date is
April 29th, Saturday, April 29th.
Saturday, April 29th. And let me tell you why this is going to be a great opportunity for you all. We have been talking about, what is necessary for us to really get over some of the issues that we find centered around race, and how do we have courageous conversations concerning race. And in the spirit of the late, great women, what was the name of the group? I was going to say the women of...
I don't remember. Yeah.
Mark, how can you forget them already?
I'm getting Alzheimer's, man. I'm one of that I forget stuff a lot now.
I was going to say Women of Glory. What was the name of the group? The old women that did on the second Tuesday of every month.
I have no idea.
You don't remember the name?
Yeah.
No.
The Merry Wives Club.
Merry Wives Club. That's
Yes,
it.
the
There you
Merry
go.
Wives Club. There it is. In honor of them, having invited Mark and I to a courageous conversation, Mark has opened up his space, and we're going to do a dinner. Mark, what should we expect? And we're going to have a dinner.
Well, I think, again, we're going to try to bring a diverse group of people. I think we're going to have around 12 people come.
Yep.
That, they may know 1 or 2 people there, but they don't know the rest. And, again, something I learned from you is we're going to have a potluck, which is a real stretch for the Black community. They don't like potlucks.
It's not that we don't like potluck. We just don't like everybody to bring a pot to the potluck.
Okay.
But anyways, go ahead. We're very
and the idea, I think, is, again, it's just much like the cookout I had last summer, an opportunity to bring people together to learn about each other and understand. Obviously, maybe there's differences, but also there's a lot of similarities they have, and again, build bridges and build relationships. And we're actually going to ask again, because we're trying to invite a diverse group of people to bring food that's maybe representative of their culture and everything. So
so we bring in some chitlins. I'm gonna bring some chitlins and
greens, collard greens, and fatback.
That is, I'm racist. I'm racist. That's racist. I'm offended. No. We'll bring something. I think that we got a green light over here with Jonathan.
He's going to come too. You going to come, Jonathan?
He's got to be there.
You got to be there. Produce it. We'll give you some food too. Okay.
Oh, good. So keep that up. Once again, that date is April
29th.
29th, and it'll be an evening time, 6 p.m. We will do social media live.
So we're going to live stream it. Oh, yeah, we'll live stream
it. Absolutely. Cool. It will be a great opportunity. So you guys tuned in, put that on your calendar, and let's get involved. All right. So I want today we're going to be talking about how can we lean in as men. So we're going to dedicate the remaining part of this session for that particular purpose. As men, how can we lean in for women? And I, it's interesting. I use the term lean in because about 6 or 7 years ago, the NBA was doing, they did a pitch, and they were talking about it was, hey, we're leaning in. And they were using LeBron James, Chris Paul, all of the top guys that were playing to really talk about the importance of supporting women in business and in life and in every area of life. And I thought it was a really powerful campaign to have these leaders in the industry that were men to stand up and to support women, not only in athletics, but also in business, in opportunities for endorsements, which, as we look at it, if we would look at why, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, this is completely off the record. Brittany Griner, one of the reasons she was able to be, taken hostage or arrested, we'll say, in Russia was because she does not make enough money in the NBA.
Don't get me going, man.
I know, Mark, but
this is all about the revenue you generate. I mean, if you can get more than 1,000 people at the WNBA game,
and that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think that the reason that a lot of times they don't get as much is because it's viewed as inferior, and these women are really playing ball. I mean, but Mark, I get it, but women are balling now, and so
I understand. But you can,
Mark, can I get it out?
No, I'm really passionate about this.
Don't get me going. So, women, you see, I'm trying to lean in for you, and you see what Mark Bassett is doing here right now.
product is fundamentally different.
No, but I agree. The product is different, but I think, and I say this because my perception or my thought process was just like yours. It was boring, and it wasn't until I think it was Deanna. I can't remember her name right now, but she was one of the people that played for the Detroit Shock. We had her come up for a camp that was here in the city of Saginaw, Michigan, and she said, "Hey, I want you guys to come out." And so me and I think it was Jay Rich and maybe Tayshaun Prince or somebody, we went down to the Palace and watched the Detroit Shock play, and we're like, these girls are balling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of became a fan. And so then Deanna Taurasi and Candace Parker and all these other women are coming in. Lisa Leslie, who, if you're out there, Lisa, and I know you're listening to us every single week, they became friends, but they were also great personalities and they were balling. And when they started dunking in the NBA and no look passes, so it is interesting. I think that we sometimes have to work harder to give a look. And not just kind of just downplay it simply because they're women. But I agree with you that it is a different market. We are not seeing what we see from LeBron and the other guys on the court. But that was one of the reasons why she was there. And we're not necessarily talking about that industry, but we're talking about equal pay for women in areas where they can sit at a corporate table and their ideas, their thoughts, and all those things are just as equal. And how do we lean in those committees? Basketball, sports can be a little bit different, and you like what you like, right?
Yep.
So I wanted to say that, but and I'm just going to give you guys a little bit. In 1970s, women's history was virtually an unknown topic in K through 12 curriculum or in general public consciousness. So the education division, I think it was in Sacramento or where was it at? San Francisco, Sacramento. There's a task force in Sonoma County, which is California. Commission on the Status of Women initiated a Women's History Week, which was celebrated in 1978. March 8th became deemed as International Women's Day. We see a number of individuals like President Carter that now come into play, and they have these great pieces. He said something that was so powerful, and I want to read just a little bit of what he said. He says he said that, what was the statement that he said? This goal can be achieved by ratifying the 27th Amendment to the United States. He was talking about equity, and he was talking about Harriet Tubman, Elizabeth Cady, Cady Stanton, and Lucretia Mott. He says that equality can happen when the equity of rights from the 27th Amendment shouldn't be denied to anyone based upon their account of sex. And so we have seen this continual progression of equity, equality, and opportunity for not just people of color, but also for gender equality as well. So I want to ask a couple of questions, and I want you guys, let's have this conversation with our women. We support you. I know I would consider myself an ally. And I asked the question, do you consider yourself an ally or an enemy to the progression of women?
There's only one answer you can actually give.
What kind of question is that?
Yeah. Do you beat your wife? Or when's the last time you beat your wife?
Well, I mean, all you got to do is listen to the conversation. Mark won't go to a WNBA game.
No, I won't. I'm not paying money for that. But that being said,
dude, you are relentless.
That being said, I would like to consider myself an ally of, again, my world has been in business. And so I think I've always tried to support and mentor high quality women. And it's about, to me, giving them exposure, giving them mentorship, just like you would a guy. I tend to look at it as we're all professionals, men, women, black, white, Asian, Hispanic. And I like working with really good people, and I don't really care what gender they are.
Well, what's interesting, Mark, is that not only are you an ally, and I saw that coming to your place of business, but what was interesting is that you were in a male-dominated industry, and to be able to find women to bring in and to open doors and give opportunities. You got some women that you placed in high positions while you were there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be very conscious about it, because the reality is, like when I went to Hemlock, the reality is it was 85% men, which is not uncommon for
white men.
Well, we're only talking about gender right now, but yes, you're right. Which is not uncommon for hardcore manufacturing facilities.
Right.
And so one of the things I did early on was, okay, we do have women here. It's very easy for there to be a trap where people promote people that they like or like them, or and so we formed a women's network. I was the executive sponsor for that women's network. I was personally engaged with that network.
Well, Mark, you're going to fall into all kind of categories in this this conversation here today.
I think the other thing is we developed kind of career building roles for people that put them from, say, like they were an engineer before, but now we're going to put them in communications to give them a growth opportunity. We're very thoughtful about making sure we gave our best young women chances for those roles and put them in those roles.
Jonathan, as a young man and doing what you do and operating in the spaces, do you find that women still have to fight for attention or acceptance in the spaces that you see yourself operating? And I'm asking that because you're a lot younger.
Yeah, I think that is a big difference, and not only because of age, but because of where I am in life. And hearing the conversation, it's like, okay, I see people as peers. Generally, that's the people that I'm interacting with is my peers. I guess superiors is a better way, or is another way to put it.
Yeah.
But it's like I interact with people that I work with, that the people that I come into contact with are on my level, and I guess I don't know what it means to be an ally at the.
Well, I'm gonna define it. But the reason I asked this question, and I'm not surprised by your answer. As a matter of fact, I asked you that specifically because I thought that would be your response. As we had conversations about race, we noticed that as the generations get younger, race becomes less of an issue to the individuals. And you don't see race as a big, because you just see people, and and I think that that's great, because that means that we're growing. Well, we're becoming browner, and we're really becoming a homogenized race. Everyone's going to be the same color by 2050, when everyone can't remember each other. We'll all be the same, and they'll forget racism.
Or at least
right?
we'll think we look the same.
I think we look the same. But I think that's an interesting concept, and I was just wondering, is that something that will change? Do you think that will change with him, Mark, as he enters into more aggressive competition for roles, and he's entering into spaces where the competition to be a part of that is a bit greater?
Be honest here. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of hires,
right,
where I was on the committee to hire someone, I was running the committee or whatever. I've never, frankly, heard ever a discussion of like, well, it's a woman, let's not hire her because she's. I've just never.
I don't
heard
think it's that.
discussion.
I think once again, when we talk about those implicit biases, I don't think that. We all know. It's just gotta ask. Like I asked you the question: are we allies or enemies? Like, who's gonna say we're an enemy? Yeah. I don't think that we're gonna have that conversation. But I think that there's subtle biases. Do you think a woman has the same ability to do this job as a man would? Do you think a woman is able to make a tough conversation? Do you think that a woman who has babies, is it a problem in the workspace?
Yeah, and I think it becomes dependent upon the kind of work.
Yeah,
in a certain sense. I mean, I think, like, again,
why? Because I think that
again, and I may have a bias here. This is
go ahead.
Unconscious bias, maybe, or a conscious bias of like, I think the more manual labor you get, I think, again, there's a stronger bias of like, okay, can she do this physically? Can she, and versus other types of jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just my bias of where, like, again, when I dealt with Hemlock, I think that there was a bigger concern of like at the hourly workforce level, was there some unconscious bias going on where certain races or genders weren't being hired because there was an unconscious bias at the hourly kind of role?
No, I got you. I got you. I understand that. And I think that some people may have some issues with what you just said.
I'm sure there will.
But I want to just say this. The evidence shows that when men are deliberately engaged in gender inclusion programs, that 90% of those organizations see progress, compared to only 30% of organizations where men are engaged. That's
for sure.
That's huge.
I mean, ultimately, if leaders aren't engaged, whether they're men or women, in trying to make a change, it's not going to change. The people at the top have to be committed to making a change.
Absolutely.
So what I read there, from my perspective is
why you say it like that? What I read there.
What I read, we're talking about perspective.
Yeah.
Yep.
From my perspective, kind of what it says is when everybody's involved in trying to get the actual right person for the job and eliminating all kinds, any other filters that it might be going through, the organization makes progress.
Well, let me read this next one, because I think that that's true. I think, but even when there's a need for those filters, because I think that the Good Old Boys Club would never cease to be the Good Old Boys Club. And I've seen occurrences where the entire or the majority of an executive staff have been all men, and they would have after work, they would go and have after work drinks, and they would have these relationships, and they would take golf trips together. And there was a particular woman that was trying to be a part of, not necessarily the Good Old Boys Club, but to get into
partake in that.
Yeah, to be a part of the team. And they didn't want to miss out on the things.
That's really important that you're involved in that. It really is. Now, I would be, I don't know when that occurred in this day and age.
No, this was just 2 years ago.
Okay. And they wouldn't invite her, because I would never do that. Well, it wasn't that
they would invite her.
Yeah.
But when it came to looking for people to fill positions that opened up that were a part of that space, they did not look as heavily as women, because they knew that it would throw off the dynamic of their Good Old Boys Club.
Yep.
So I think that there is a need for us to look at that. But the next thing that I want to throw out there, and this was something else, what is at stake? A study by McKinsey projects that in a full potential scenario in which women participate in the economy identically to men, $28 trillion, that's 26%, would be added to the annual global GDP when compared to the current business as usual scenario. Now, this may take a lot of things for granted.
There's a lot of having done that kind of. There's a lot of assumptions there. I don't know what that means.
There are some assumptions.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
But I think that I'm going to tell you, I never have a team if I don't have at least one woman that's on board that has the ability to really draw some serious concerns and conclusions, strong voice, ability to make change happen. And anytime I work, I always make sure that I have a woman. Ask me why.
I'm just looking around this room right now, and well, why, Kareem?
Because whether we like it or not, I think there are certain things that we are naturally equipped with. I think there is a design function in us.
So you mean there's differences between men and women?
No, there are.
Okay.
And I really,
I
while we're having this conversation,
I agree with you.
I enjoy femininity and I enjoy masculinity.
Yeah.
And I like having them. And I like the fact that in my mind and in my world and in my space, women are feminine. And women are those who were born women from birth. That's and some of them may be, you vary in your levels of femininity, but I think that that's where femininity should lie. Yep. So I'll say that. But in addition to that, Mark, what I will say is that as we look at these situations, I just think that women have an innate ability to pay attention to detail in ways that sometimes men are not equipped to do so.
So they bring a different skill set.
Absolutely.
And I guess I've never set out to say I've got to check this many boxes with people. I need a woman, I need an African American.
No.
But now that just thinking about all the leadership teams I've had, I've always had at least one woman, but it was never by design of say like, okay, I need a woman on my team. I'm more of like, I want to bring
That's where you've been going wrong, Mark, all this time.
Maybe.
You'd probably be
that
the president.
I've always just said I want to get the best people I can, and I do want different perspectives and skills.
But I think that that's sometimes a cop-out too. I think sometimes we say we just want the best people. And this is where you were going, Jonathan. Yep. And so I'm coming for you. I'm driving down your street. If we focus on getting just the best people but the fact of the matter is, if we had 10, candidates that were all equally the same, and I think that we then look at if everyone has
secondary differentiators at that point.
Yeah. And then I think that we have to look at what is the makeup of our team here where we work, or the culture of our team. How many women are represented in these spaces? And I think that we then have to make some decisions that say, hey,
sure,
if all of them are equal, and that's the other thing, it's not just about, not that they are not qualified, not that they are the best. And when we make that, if we focus on getting the best people, a lot of those people, if we didn't use our personal biases would be women. And I think that when we look at bringing them in, that we are then, because I think at the end of the day, and we've had this conversation, the purpose of diversity ain't just having a whole bunch of different colors in the room, but it's about everyone bringing their very best self to the table.
And I'm a big believer in that. I mean, again, back at Hemlock, when we had 5 of these developmental roles, and we made a conscious decision we wanted to have, because we had a good group of women. We wanted 2 women to fill those roles.
Yeah.
And so that's to your point of like, we had 10, maybe I'll just make the number up, 10 really good people. They were all good. And we're going to have a mixture of men and women in these roles.
And I think it's important because I think, as we said, with that mixture comes a diversity of knowledge, of experience, of expertise. And then I think that's when we become our absolute best selves. So the point that I made is that whatever team, because most times when I'm working with folks, we gravitate to people who look and kind of think similar to who we are. And so men are always, as a man,
I actually don't like that. I want people to challenge me.
Well, I'm saying I think that it's naturally that we do that.
Yeah.
So we have to put in those fail stops to make sure that we don't do that. And one of the ways in which I do that is to make sure that we always bring someone who is a woman to the table.
So are you going to kick me off now and bring in a woman? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're prepping me for here, Kareem?
But what I'm going to tell you that there were a number of women that I've had conversations with prior to this. And I said, you know, what would be your thoughts? Because there's some things that backlash. And you were saying how you have been an advocate for women, but we got to understand that there's some times that as men, we advocate for women. And when we get to those spaces, women are looking at us like, why is this dude here?
Yeah.
And so we got to be aware of those. Then there are some stigmatism. We're talking about the stigmas of, you know, what happens when a man is leaning in, and statistics say that even some women look at him as being not as masculine or not as a strong man or losing something when he leans in too hard for women. So there's a lot that we have to do here, but you've met Sandra Ware.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sandra and I, we've worked together, man, since 2000.
Very good. I like her.
Yeah. Super smart. I mean,
Yep.
I honestly, I'm a thinker, I'm a creator, an ideal person.
She gets stuff done.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yep.
She gets things done. She is she's a great thinker.
Yep.
And so when I think about that dynamic of how we operate, and it's what's interesting is this is something that I learned, and women, I think that you'll appreciate this, hopefully. Over the years, I realized I'm a very type A person all day long. And what I realized is that in me just being Kareem the man, I am man, hear me roar, that I had to learn over time that in my relationship with working with her, that I had to make sure that I intentionally learned to shut up, to pull back my claws, to sit back in my seat, and to listen to what it is that she was saying. Because I realized that many times she had been at the table, and even though she was at the table, I did not provide her the space to adequately lead in the areas where she was stronger than I was, Mark, and it was to our detriment.
Yep.
So those of you who are out there, as you're having these conversations, and hopefully you think about, are you leaning in for women? Even if it's just at home, there's simple things that we can do that can truly make a difference. Hey, if both people are working, brother, it's time for you to realize that just because you're the man, you don't have to wait till dinner is done, but you can go grab a recipe, at least grab a pizza if you're not good in the kitchen, and help out. Let's make sure that we're helping out, not just for the month of March, because some people are like, hey, I'm going to do the dishes in March, but every single day, women need our attention. They need our strength. They need our ability to help to support them as they continue to make strides of equity in the workplace, in the home, in pay. I was reading a story about Halle Berry, and she had to fight. The movie that she received an Oscar for, her major payout was only $5,000. But so we got to work. We got work to do. I hope you guys are leaning in the month of March. It's Women History Month. We're going to do what we can to make things better. God bless you all. Grace and peace.